Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the video. I'm GetGoodGuy, and I recently asked what the best SMG is in Battlefield 1. I provided a poll with the 5 most popular SMGs in BF1 based upon weapon usage stats. This was because YouTube only allows you to select 5 options per poll, and because realistically, there's no way that anything lower than the top 5 could possibly win. And I'd love to say that this was a close run race, but it wasn't. As you can see here, the SMG 08/18 ended up running away with the result pretty comfortably. I will give a quick honorary mention to the Ribber Relay because a fair few people commented that they'd have liked to select that option, and it is a great and versatile weapon, so good for you, Ribber Relay, but again, there was no way it was going to take the top spot anyway. And so you may be wondering how today is going to differ from my usual weapon featurettes. Well, dear viewer, rather than just simply give an overview of the stats and my experience with the weapon, I'll be talking more specifically about why I think it's the most popular choice, whether it makes sense from my point of view, and whether I put this at the top of the SMG list. You'll also be seeing some highlight plays of the weapon in my hands, followed by a selection of single kills in chronological order from a few games, in order to get a more realistic look at how the weapon performs on a standard gunfight to gunfight basis, which is actually very similar to how I structure my weapon featurettes, because I think it's just the best way of giving you a good look at the weapon. So what are the obvious reasons that this weapon was a pretty easy pick for a lot of people? What are the things that literally just stare you in the face and scream that the SMG 08 can be extremely powerful? Well, the first thing and I believe many others think of, is ammo capacity. The SMG 08 can utilize 81 rounds per full reload, people. Just think of that for a second. 81. Remember the Hellregal factory? The weapon that was the bane of this game's existence for what felt like forever? Okay, it's not very likely you've forgotten about it, but regardless, that thing only had 60 rounds per reload. Just to put all of this into perspective. Now, the Hellregal defensive carries 120 rounds, which is massive, so why isn't everyone running around with that? Well, the defensive variant of the Hellregal is notoriously hard for the majority of players to use, as well as to even unlock, something that the SMG 08/18 isn't on both accounts. In fact, I'd wager that the SMG 08 factory will be in most players' lists of easiest weapons to use in BF1. Not all players, of course, as I've seen accounts from players who say they simply can't get to grips with it, but for most people, the SMG 08 is pretty close to Assault Easy mode. But why is that? Well, it's the spray and pray nature of the weapon, with a faster rate of fire than the Hellregal variants by 120 rounds per minute, plus a higher max damage by 1.5 hit points per shot. Basically, it doesn't take much effort to drop people within the weapon's intended range. Not a whole lot of aiming prowess is necessary, and if you're missing your shots, you have the option to just keep holding the trigger down until you reacquire the target, something that you'll have seen and will see me do in some of the clips in this video. There just isn't the necessity to stop firing. But that's the obvious stuff, right? The stuff that we said was staring us in the face. So let's dig a little deeper to the stuff that perhaps not everyone considers, but they do benefit from. When DICE altered the SMG 08 from a slow-firing, longer-range SMG to what we have now, they essentially created a hybrid. A hybrid between a lethal close-quarters SMG and a large ammo capacity SMG for prolonged periods of combat. This is because the SMG 08 factory, with a rate of fire of 770 rounds per minute, a maximum damage of 28, a minimum damage of 15, and the damage fall-off model that it possesses, actually means it sits between the Annihilator and the Automatico for time to kill, all the way out to 30 meters. That's right, the SMG 08 drops opponents out to 30 meters in and around as quickly as 2 SMGs that are specifically designed for close quarters slaying, whilst being able to rely on 81 rounds per reload. In short, the SMG 08/18 is a monster. Now, this may not be something that everyone considers when they're using it, but they'll certainly be rewarded by it and gain enjoyment from it. This combination allows for a potentially very exciting playstyle, an aggressive playstyle, a rushing playstyle, the ability to kill enemies quickly, one after another, without needing to stop to slap more bullets into it. I'm absolutely certain that this combination is one of the driving factors behind the SMG 08 being viewed as potentially the best SMG in BF1. And this is by considering it strictly as an infantry killing weapon, but we can add to that. BF1 has cavalry, and most cavalry users need to get pretty close to the enemy in order to take them out. And where is the SMG 08 most lethal? Close quarters. Cavalry also requires a lot of rounds to put them down. And what does the SMG 08 have? Lots of rounds. This thing is a horse mincer. It just churns them up in a way that's almost akin to a large ammo capacity LMG. Just another reason why this weapon could be viewed as being so potent. And if we look at it from an all-encompassing viewpoint, the SMG08 can make up for the deficiencies of lower ability players due to its spray and pray nature, fast time to kill, and abundance of ammo. But whereas some easy to use weapons are therefore limited in effectiveness to create balance, this doesn't really apply to the SMG08, because higher ability level players can be rewarded by it due to that same fast time to kill and enough ammo to push multiple people at once. Basically, where close quarters play is concerned, it's just damn good regardless of who's using it. It's potentially too good. Maybe not by a huge amount, but there's certainly an argument that it's at least a little too lethal and forgiving. We could actually perhaps lean further towards the more capable end of the spectrum as being the ones that most benefit. As you'll have seen from some of the gameplay, tap firing, burst firing, or whatever you want to call it, helps to negate at least partially one of the SMG08's drawbacks, that being range. It doesn't allow this thing to compete at long range, of course, but at medium range, you can still have a go at dropping someone. But we should probably at least briefly cover the drawbacks of the weapon, even if only to show that they probably aren't all that significant, and thus are likely another reason why this weapon was voted as the best SMG. Well, although I have just mentioned how to make it a little more viable at medium range, it's undeniably not a ranged weapon. So in terms of using distance as our measure for effectiveness, it's not all that versatile. It's just got too much recoil without a tight enough spread and a pretty slow muzzle velocity. And the recoil section of what I just mentioned could affect some players even at closer ranges, as it really isn't great in terms of horizontal stability. Plus, it's got somewhat of a long reload, but like duh, really, right? I mean, it has got 81 rounds per reload anyway, and realistically these drawbacks on an SMG just don't equate too much. If you just stick to where it's supposed to be used, it's extremely good. So then why does it beat out the optical variant? Well, I hypothesize that it's because the optical essentially isn't required. The SMG08 is best at close quarters, where you don't really need an optical sight. It doesn't really add anything to what this weapon is designed for. Plus, it has worse spread and recoil multipliers. So although it excels in other ways, it essentially doesn't matter most of the time, because the factory variant is doing what it's supposed to, where it's supposed to. And if the player wanted to play in a more expansive fashion, they could simply choose something that's specifically designed for it, rather than switching to the optical variant. So do I understand why people would select this as the best SMG in BF1? Well, I think it's probably pretty clear from my descriptions and analysis that I do. There's clearly a definite sense of agreement on my part, which means that I also think it's a very solid choice for being the best SMG in the game at this point. Now, is it actually the best SMG? Well, that really comes down to personal preference and playstyle, as well as the situation you're facing. But if I were to be asked to look at it from an overall viewpoint for a weapon that can be used by the vast majority of players, and by weighing its strengths against its weaknesses, then I'd say yes, it is potentially the best SMG. It's not the most versatile, the Ruby Relay and the Hellregal potentially beat it out there. It's also not the most specialized in a way that the Annihilator Trench is due to its fantastic hipfire slaying capabilities. But as an in-between, as an ease of use option that is also extremely lethal, the SMG08/18 is my go-to pick. Now, the positives it has doesn't mean you'll always hit your shots though, as you'll see here, so be sure to bring along other equipment that you're comfortable with and can rely upon, so you can still come out on top in whatever engagement you find yourself in. And so now I ask, what do you think? Is the SMG08/18 the best SMG in BF1? If so, why? And if not, what would you choose? Let me know in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed the video, a like rating genuinely helps the channel to grow, as does a subscription if you're new here, and turning on notifications with the bell button so you don't miss future content. Now let's go over to the board of awesome for the epic people who support the channel on Patreon. That support is part of the reason I can do this full time, so thanks to everybody on here so very much. If you want to join them on the board of awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with that all said, I'm Get Good Guy, and I'll see you next time. Laters.